Greetings and welcome to this next installment of Bible Topics that make you say, hmm. I'm Robin Sweet Ransom and so glad that you could join me. As always, I got a doozy of a topic for you. This one is going to be one that you really will not expect. And I will give you a trigger warning. This is going to be a very sensitive topic, one you probably don't even know that's in the Bible, but it is. My job is to bring to life the Bible. So many people think it's boring, and there are some boring parts in it, but there's so much more to it. Um, there's some juicy details and there's some gory details, and I want to share my thoughts with you. Is it okay to cut women up? Crazy question to ask, right? Seems like a no-brainer. No, it's not okay. And this sign here, no more stolen sisters, this was because of what's going on with our indigenous women, our Native American women, both in America and in Canada. They're being raped and murdered at alarming rates, and a lot of their murders are going unsolved. They're being kidnapped as well. And I like to use current events to tie into the Bible. You all may be aware of beautiful Sade Robinson. I believe she was between 19 and 21 or what have you. And she went on a date with this guy that she met on some dating app. And on the first date, he murdered her. I don't know if he raped her, but you know why we won't know whether or not he raped her unless he confesses to it? Because he cut her up in pieces and spread her body out throughout the city. They're still finding body parts. And my heart breaks for her mom, who does not have a whole body to bury. My heart breaks for her mom that she has to have a body to bury at all. Her daughter should still be here. Thank God they caught that beast within a day or two of the crime, and he's sitting in jail now. But this wasn't the first time that a woman was cut up. Let's go to Judges chapter 19. In those days, when there was no king of Israel, a Levite living in a remote part of the hill country of Ephraim acquired a woman from Bethlehem in Judah as his concubine. A concubine was less than a wife. And so oftentimes men got a concubine when their wife was infertile. They got the concubine to have children for her or just to have more children. And this man didn't have a wife. Why he didn't make this woman his full wife with all the rights of a wife, I don't know. But she was unfaithful to him. She cheated on him and left him for her father's house in Bethlehem. Now, in Bible times, when people were committing fornication or especially adultery, they were supposed to be put to death. So she should have been put to death based upon the law. She was at her father's house for a period of 4 months. Then her husband, notice that he's called her husband, but the title will change later. Then her husband got up and went after her to speak kindly to her. So he still wanted her. He didn't want her to be put to death because he could have called for her to be put to death. He wanted to bring her back. He wanted to woo her. His servant and a couple of donkeys were with him. So she brought him to her father's house. And when the girl's father saw him, he gladly welcomed him. His father-in-law, the girl's father, detained him and he stayed with him for 3 days. They ate, drank, and were merry and spent the nights there. Now, he actually spent longer than that. I'm not going, for the sake of time, going to read all of those verses in between, but every time he was ready to leave, the father-in-law said, "Oh, no, stay. Oh, don't leave. It's too late. Go in the morning." Then the morning would come. "Oh, no, stay. Eat something. Oh, now it's too late. Don't go." So finally, the man had enough of that. After 5 days, he was ready to go, picking up in verse 10. But the man was unwilling to spend another night. He got up, departed, and arrived in a city opposite Jebus, later known as Jerusalem. At that time, David hadn't conquered the city yet and named and renamed it to Jerusalem. The man had his 2 saddled donkeys and his concubine with him. When they were near Jebus and the day was almost gone, the servant said to his master, "Please, why not let us stop at the Jebusite city and spend the night here?" And the man didn't want to do that. I guess he felt like it was a godless country. He wanted to go where people serve Yahweh. And so back then, it's not like they had inns and hotels everywhere. When you saw a stranger who needed lodging, you invited them into your house. So there was an old man who saw the traveler, verse 17, and he said, "Where are you going and where do you come from?" And the man said, "Well, we've been traveling from Bethlehem and Judah to the remote hill country of Ephraim, where I am from. I went to Bethlehem and Judah, and now I'm going to the house of the Lord. No one has taken me into his home." So the old man says, "Come stay with me." Verse 22. While they were enjoying themselves, all of a sudden perverted men of the city surrounded the house and beat on the door. They said to the old man, who was the owner of the house, bring out that man who came into your house so we can have sex with him. The audacity of these homosexuals. We think it's bad now. Look what they did then. Verse 23. The owner of the house went out and said to him, no, don't do this evil, my brothers. After all, this man is coming to my house. Now remember, this other man didn't want to stay in Jebus because he felt it was not a good place to be. So he went where he thought it was a good place to be, and we saw that it was not. After all, this man is coming to my house. Don't do this horrible thing. Here, let me bring out my virgin daughter. What? Let me bring out my virgin daughter. She probably still a teenager. I say that because she's still a virgin and unmarried, but I could be wrong. Nonetheless, he was going to sacrifice her and the man's concubine. Use them and do whatever you want to them, but don't do this horrible thing to this pitiful little old man. I don't know. Maybe they felt they were homosexual, so they weren't going to do anything to the girls. But the men would not listen to him. So the man, meaning her husband, seized his concubine and took her outside to them. And what did they do? They raped her and abused her all night long. And at daybreak, they let her go. Verse 26, early that morning, the woman made her way back, and as it was getting light, she collapsed at the doorway of the man's house where her master was. See how the name changed? First he was the husband, now he's the master. With the master plan, huh? And so as the master, I guess he felt he could do anything he wanted with his slave. Because now she's not concubine now, right? Anyway, when her master got up in the morning, opened the doors of the house and went out to leave on his journey, he wasn't even thinking about the woman, didn't go looking for her. He was just going to go leave. The heck with her, the same woman he was wooing to come back to him. There was this woman, his concubine, collapsed near the doorway of the house with her hands on the threshold. And what did he say? Get up. Let's go. But there was no response. So the man put her on his donkey and set out for home. You know why there was no response? Because they raped her to death. She just had just enough energy to get to the door. Maybe she didn't even have energy enough to knock. I don't know. When this man entered his house, he picked up a knife. He did what? And did what with it? He took hold of his concubine and cut her into 12 pieces, limb by limb, and sent her body throughout the territory of Israel. Why 12? Stand for the 12 tribes of Israel, a body part for each tribe. The story doesn't end here, but I'm going to end it there. Twisted logic yields evil outcomes. So back then, taking care of one's guests was more important than women, obviously. You just gonna give your daughter and this man's woman to these random filthy beasts to do with whatever they want. He even said that, do whatever you want to them, but protect this man. But this wasn't the first time this has happened. They probably got this twisted idea from Lot. When the homosexuals of Sodom and Gomorrah came banging on Lot's door because they wanted to have sex with the angels, he said, don't do this. I'll give you my virgin daughters who were betrothed in marriage. They were engaged. Have them and do what you want. In Genesis 19, it says this. We're in Judges 19, so Genesis happened before Judges. And the men didn't want to hear that. So the angel struck those men with blindness, and he said, come on, we need to get up out of here. This is why we came here. This is why God is going to destroy this place. And people want to say the reason why God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah is because of poor hospitality. No, it was for homosexuality. Jesus did and does not approve of the mistreatment of women. In John chapter 8, we have a story of a woman caught in adultery. In the midst, in the throes of it, they take her, throw her at Jesus' feet so she can be stoned to death, but they didn't do anything to the man she was committing adultery with. Who knows? He might have been a part of the men wanting to stone her to death. And that was the law. You're supposed to kill them. But Jesus, seeing what they were doing, Began to write down on the ground. He said, "He who was without sin cast the first stone." And then he began to write. Some people believe that he was writing out the sins of the people that were there. They began to drop their stones one by one, and they didn't stone her to death. They walked away. Jesus looked at her and said, "What? They didn't stone you? They didn't condemn you?" She said, "No." He said, "Neither do I. Go and sin no more." So those men gave grace to the person she committed homosexual with. They didn't kill him, and God gave grace to this woman. Jesus healed women and raised them from the dead. Luke 8:40 through 56. God will restore the righteous and punish the wicked. Psalm 37:34. God loves women and will punish their abusers. So, in answer to the question, is it okay to cut women up? No. And that filthy beast who just cut up Sade, I look forward to him getting the full book of justice thrown at him. And if he don't repent and get it together, Jesus will deal with him on the other side. And I like this picture. Looking back over my life, I am amazed how God has kept me. Maybe that's your story too. Wait for the Lord and keep his way, and he will exalt you to inherit the land. You will watch when the wicked are destroyed. So, for those who've been abused and hurt, one day your abusers will get their just desserts. All right. Like I said, that wasn't the end of the story. Come back next time, and we're going to continue with that story and ask the question, is it okay to rape women? All right. Thank you for being here with me on Bible Topics That Make You Say, hmm. I'll see you next time.